Chapter 3 of The Little Colonel. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Maria Therese. The Little Colonel by Annie Fellows Johnston. Chapter 3. 2 hours later, Colonel Lloyd, riding down the avenue under the locusts, was surprised by a novel sight on his stately front steps. 3 little darkies and a big flop-eared hound were crouched on the bottom step looking up at the Little Colonel, who sat just above them. She was industriously stirring something in an old rusty pan with a big battered spoon. "Now, May Lily," she ordered, speaking to the largest and blackest of the group, "you run and find some nice, smooth pebbles to put in for raisins. Henry Clay, you go get me some more sand. This is 'most too wet." "Here, you little pickaninnies," roared the Colonel, as he recognized the cook's children. "What did I tell you about playing around here, tracking dirt all over my premises? You just chase back to the cabin where you belong." The sudden call startled Lloyd so that she dropped the pan, and the great mud pie turned upside down on the white steps. "Well, you're a pretty sight," said the Colonel, as he glanced with disgust from her soiled dress and muddy hands to her bare feet. He had been in a bad humor all morning. The sight of the steps covered with sand and muddy tracks gave him an excuse to give vent to his cross feelings. It was one of his theories that a little girl should always be kept as fresh and dainty as a flower. He had never seen his own little daughter in such a plight as this, and she had never been allowed to step outside of her own room without her shoes and stockings. "What does your mother mean," he cried savagely, "by letting you run barefooted around the country just like poor white trash? And what are you playing with low-flung niggers for? Haven't you ever been taught any better? I suppose it's some of your father's miserable Yankee notions." May Lily, peeping around the corner of the house, rolled her frightened eyes from one angry face to the other. The same temper that glared from the face of the man, sitting erect in his saddle, seemed to be burning in the eyes of the child who stood so defiantly before him. The same kind of scowl drew their eyebrows together darkly. "Don't you talk that way to me," cried the Little Colonel, trembling with a wrath she did not know how to express. Suddenly she stooped, and snatching both hands full of mud from the overturned pie, flung it wildly on the spotless white coat. Colonel Lloyd gasped with astonishment. It was the first time in his life he had ever been openly defied. The next moment his anger gave way to amusement. "By George," he chuckled admiringly, "the little thing has got spirit, sure enough. She's a Lloyd through and through. So that's why they call her the Little Colonel, is it?" "There, there, child," he said soothingly. "I didn't mean to make you mad when you were good enough to come and see me. It isn't often I have a little lady like you to pay me a visit." "I didn't come to see you, suh," she answered indignantly, as she started towards the gate. "I came to see May Lily. But I nevah would have come inside yo' gate if I'd known you was goin' to holler at me and be so cross." She was walking off with the air of an offended queen, when the Colonel remembered that if he allowed her to go away in that mood, she would probably never set foot on his grounds again. Her display of temper had interested him immensely. Now that he had laughed off his ill humor, he was anxious to see what other traits of character she possessed. He wheeled his horse across the walk to bar her way, and quickly dismounted. "Oh, now, wait a minute," he said, in a coaxing tone. "Don't you want a nice big saucer of strawberries and cream before you go? Walker's picking some now. And you haven't seen my hothouse. It's just full of the loveliest flowers you ever saw. You like roses, don't you, and pinks, and lilies, and pansies?" He saw he had struck the right chord as soon as he mentioned the flowers. The sullen look vanished as if by magic. Her face changed as suddenly as an April day. "Oh, yes," she cried with a beaming smile. "I loves 'em bettah than anything." He tied his horse and led the way to the conservatory. He opened the door for her to pass through, and then watched her closely to see what impression it would make on her. He had expected a delighted exclamation of surprise, for he had good reason to be proud of his rare plants. They were arranged with a true artist's eye for color and effect. She did not say a word for a moment, but drew a long breath, while the delicate pink in her cheeks deepened and her eyes lighted up. Then she began going slowly from flower to flower, laying her face against the cool velvety purple of the pansies, touching the rosebuds with her lips, and tilting the white lily cups to look into their golden depths. As she passed from one to another as lightly as a butterfly might have done, she began chanting in a happy undertone. Ever since she had learned to talk she had a quaint little way of singing to herself. All the names that pleased her fancy she strung together in a crooning melody of her own. There was no special tune. It sounded happy, although nearly always in a minor key. "Oh, the jonquils and the lilies," she sang, "all white and gold and yellow. Oh, they're all a smilin' at me and a sayin' howdy, howdy." She was so absorbed in her intense enjoyment that she forgot all about the old Colonel. She was wholly unconscious that he was watching or listening. "She really does love them," he thought complacently. To see her face one would think she had found a fortune. It was another bond between them. After a while he took a small basket from the wall and began to fill it with his choicest blooms. "You shall have these to take home," he said. "Now come into the house and get your strawberries." She followed him reluctantly, turning back several times for one more long sniff of the delicious fragrance. She was not at all like the Colonel's ideal of what a little girl should be, as she sat in one of the high stiff chairs enjoying her strawberries. Her dusty little toes wriggled around in the curls on Fritz's back, as she used him for a footstool. Her dress was draggled and dirty, and she kept leaning over to give the dog berries and cream from the spoon she was eating with herself. He forgot all this, however, when she began to talk to him. "My great Aunt Sally Tyler is to our house this mornin'," she announced confidentially. "That's why we came off. Do you know my Aunt Sally Tyler?" "Well, slightly," chuckled the Colonel. "She was my wife's half sister." "So you don't like her, eh? Well, I don't like her either." He threw back his head and laughed heartily. The more the child talked, the more entertaining he found her. He did not remember when he had ever been so amused before as he was by this tiny counterpart of himself. When the last berry had vanished, she slipped down from the tall chair. "Do you 'pose it's very late?" she asked in an anxious voice. "Ma and Beck will be comin' for me soon." "Yes, it is nearly noon," he answered. "It didn't do much good to run away from your Aunt Tyler. She'll see you after all." "Well, she can't 'queeze me and kiss me, 'cause I've been naughty, and I'll be put to bed like I was the othah day, just as soon as I get home. I 'most wish I was there now," she sighed. "It's so far, and the sun's so hot. I lost my sunbonnet when I was comin' here, too." Something in the tired, dirty face prompted the old Colonel to say, "Well, my horse hasn't been put away yet. I'll take you home on Maggie Boy." The next moment he repented making such an offer, thinking what the neighbors might say if they should meet him on the road with Elizabeth's child in his arm. But it was too late. He could not unclasp the trusting little hand that was slipped in his. He could not cloud the happiness of the eager little face by retracting his promise. He swung himself into the saddle with her in front. Then he put his one arm around her with a firm clasp as he reached forward to take the bridle. "You couldn't take Fritz on behind, could you?" she asked anxiously. "He's mighty tied, too." "No," said the Colonel with a laugh. "Maggie Boy might object and throw us all off." Hugging her basket of flowers close in her arms, she leaned her head against him contentedly as they cantered down the avenue. "Look!" whispered all the locusts, waving their hands to each other excitedly. "Look! The master has his own again. The dear old times are coming back to us." "How the trees blow!" exclaimed the child, looking up at the green arch overhead. "See, they is all a noddin' to each othah." "We'll have to get my shoes and 'tockin's," she said presently, when they were nearly home. "They're in that fence corner behind the log." The Colonel obediently got down and handed them to her. As he mounted again, he saw a carriage coming toward them. He recognized one of his nearest neighbors. Striking the astonished Maggie Boy with his spur, he turned her across the railroad track, down the steep embankment, and into an unfrequented lane. "This road is just back of your garden," he said. "Can you get through the fence if I take you there?" "That's the way we came out," was the answer. "See that hole where the palin's are off?" Just as he was about to lift her down, she put one arm around his neck and kissed him softly on the cheek. "Good by, grandfathah," she said in her most winning way. "I've had a mighty nice time." Then she added in a lower tone, "'Cuse me for throwin' mud on your coat." He held her close a moment, thinking nothing had ever been half so sweet as the way she called him grandfather. From that moment his heart went out to her as it had to little Tom and Elizabeth. It made no difference if her mother had forfeited his love. It made no difference if Jack Sherman was her father, and that the two men heartily hated each other. It was his own little grandchild he held in his arms. She had sealed the relationship with a trusting kiss. "Child," he said huskily, "you will come and see me again, won't you, no matter if they do tell you not to? You shall have all the flowers and berries you want, and you can ride Maggie Boy as often as you please." She looked up into his face. It was very familiar to her. She had looked at his portrait often, unconsciously recognizing a kindred spirit that she longed to know. Her ideas of grandfathers, gained from stories and observation, led her to class them with fairy godmothers. She had always wished for one. The day they moved to Lloydsboro, Locust had been pointed out to her as her grandfather's home. From that time on she slipped away with Fritz on every possible occasion to peer through the gate, hoping for a glimpse of him. "Yes, I'll come, suh," she promised. "I likes you just lots, grandfathah." He watched her scramble through the hole in the fence. Then he turned his horse's head slowly homeward. A scrap of white lying on the grass attracted his attention as he neared the gate. "It's the lost sunbonnet," he said with a smile. He carried it into the house and hung it on the hat rack in the wide front hall. "Old Marse is crosser'n two sticks," growled Walker to the cook at dinner. "There ain't no livin' with him. What do you s'pose is the mattah?" CHAPTER 4 Maria Therese